Welcome to the Mo Show Live, everybody. Hey, I'm Morris Lilienthal. Many of you know that I live, and my family and I live, and we work here in North Alabama, a lot of times called the Tennessee Valley. It is such a great place to live, to raise a family. We have great recreational activities. We have a thriving economy and a lot of great school systems here in our area. And one of the reasons for this, when you have a great situation like that, it's a lot of times based upon having great local leaders. And so we've got one of our great local leaders today, Mayor Paul Finley of the city of Madison. And before we get started, let me just tell you just a quick snapshot about the city of Madison. And Mayor can correct me if I'm wrong here in a minute, but Madison is about 50,000 people. And we have consistently been ranked as one of the top cities to live in Alabama, and really one of the top cities in America to raise a family. And we have one of the top school systems in the state. And in the last rankings that came out from the State Department, only 2 school systems in the entire state had every school receive an A, and Madison was one of them. And I can tell you, I'm biased. As many of you know, my wife teaches in that school system. My son's a product of that school system, and so I'm really biased there. But let me introduce our guest today. Our guest today is Madison Mayor Paul Finley. Mayor Finley is a graduate of Murray State University. I know he's a racer there, and then a proud graduate there. He's also a proud father of 3 sons. I know he's a big basketball supporter. His son Tanner, who I've gotten to watch at UAH, University of Alabama Huntsville basketball, loves going out to watch and support his son, and I'm sure his other sons as well. Mayor Finley was first elected to his first term as the mayor of the city of Madison in 2008. And during that term, he led many economic projects such as the Madison Hospital, the YMCA, which is a super nice YMCA here in town in Madison, other projects such as James Clemens High School and other retail development projects. Mayor Finley, like a lot of us, decided after that term he wanted to spend some more time with his family. And then I guess maybe had a calling or a pushing from others in the community and was reelected mayor in 2016. Mayor Finley, thank you so much for your time today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I appreciate you having me and love all that you're talking about. It's, Madison is a great place to live. This Tennessee Valley is a wonderful place to be a part of, and so it's neat to be a part of the leadership team right now that's trying to continue to make a difference for everybody.
Well, it is a great place to live, and I'm glad you said that. And I want to ask you about some collaborative efforts later on that I think is very unique to our area, that a lot of our leaders in our community stretches across cities and county lines, do a great job of working together to bring a lot of development to our area. Hey, if you're watching, folks, and you're watching the live show, please say hello. If you've got a question for the mayor, say hello. If you've got a question and you're watching the replay, leave a question there. We can come back afterwards and maybe respond or send you to a link on the Facebook page. And at the end of the show here, we'll put some information about where you can find more info about the city of Madison, their website, and where you can find contact information and social media outlets where you can keep track of what's going on in Madison. Mayor, can you kind of tell our audience, for people that maybe aren't quite here in Huntsville in the Tennessee Valley, Madison area, a little bit about the city, about the demographics, and there's a lot of people that are from this area. I know Madison has just blown up in the last 25 to 30 years in terms of population and development. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can, and the biggest reason we've blown up, it's twofold. First and foremost, it's because of our proximity to Huntsville, the jobs that are in Research Park and Redstone Arsenal. The fact that we were just due west of that and very close to get to those jobs is a critical piece. The second part of that is, though, in the late 90s, we started our own school system. And as you talked about, it has elevated to one of the top 3 systems in the state. Definitely something that is on the caliber nationwide. I mean, it's in the top percentages nationwide. So, because of those 2 things, and then because everyone within this Tennessee Valley who's trying to make a difference continues to bring more jobs here and benefit from the arsenal, we've all grown, but Madison's blown up because of those assets. So the hardest thing for us is just a wonderful problem that every mayor in this nation wishes they had, and that was managing growth. And that's what we're trying to do right now. It's both with the explosion within the schools, but also the infrastructure that supports them in roads and parks and so forth. So love our community, and it's just working hard with our city council to make sure we continue to try to keep up.
Yeah. And so for those watching, if you don't know, Madison is next door to or adjacent to the city of Huntsville, which many of you may have heard of. And next to that is what we call Redstone Arsenal, which is a large military installation. And Mayor, you probably know better than I do, but I think 35,000 plus people go on and off to work there every day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's between 35 and 40,000 every day. It's has a 4-star Army command. NASA, which has been there for years, and propulsion. So we also have the Missile Defense Agency. And then some of the bigger things that are coming, the FBI and ATF both are starting to have a pretty major presence there. So a major federal facility. And then, most of the residents that live in Madison, that's where they're trying to get to, either to those government jobs or to the contractor jobs that are in a research park that support that. So, and then a lot of those folks, they're engineers, they're highly educated. They hold their families accountable for education. And your wife, being a teacher, would tell you they are some of the most entwined and committed parents that you will ever have, which just makes that school system blossom.
Yeah, and I think I heard the Garretson commander, which I was told when I first moved to the North Alabama, essentially the mayor of Redstone Arsenal, say at our Rotary Club one time, I think the average salary is over $80,000 a year for the people that work on Redstone Arsenal. Just so it really kind of gives you an idea of the perspective of the opportunity that's here in the Madison, North Alabama area. And one thing I would share that I think you kind of hit on was, when people relocate here, which is what happens a lot, people for, Boeing or Northrop Grumman, a lot of the defense contractors, or an actual government employee, a lot of times they come to town, and my wife would be the first to tell you that they'll say, well, we moved to Madison because of the school system.
Yeah.
And that ends up, and then they fall in love with the city. You hear that a lot.
And being a Madison resident and not truly understanding how we even get to that point, once I got involved, what you start to recognize is, for years and years and years, the Huntsville-Madison County Chamber is, in essence, the economic development piece. And so all of these folks, whether they're in Research Park, whether they're bankers, whether they're insurance agents, they all come together, work together collaboratively to try to figure out how to bring more jobs and build off the assets that we have. Once we land the jobs, the respective families go to what makes sense for their family. And right now, if education is a criticality for you, in your family, there's a good chance you're going to try to find a way to get into Madison. And that's why we continue to grow, is because the school system's great. So we recognize, and that's why we want to partner and continue to partner with Madison County and Dale Strong, with Limestone County and Mark Yarbrough, and then Mayor Battle and his team, because that's what's bringing everybody here as we work together. Then they figure out where they're going to live, what bank they use, what attorney they use, and so forth.
Yeah, but no doubt. Hey, real quick, I want to thank some people that are joining us, Mayor. We've got Perar Joseph, Chris Cassidy all the way from Cincinnati, Ohio, Mitch Jackson from California, Jeffrey Middleton, and several others. Thanks, everybody. Dennis Sanders, who's actively involved in my Rotary Club. You may know Dennis. I want to thank all you guys for joining us so much. If you got questions, just let us know. One thing I saw that I was so cool that I really wanted to let you share, that I was really, before we get off the education bus here, I just was really blown away by this. I saw that you and the city have a relationship with one of the local third graders classes here, and that I saw a video that you did where you went out and spoke. I think it's Miss Williams' class over at Horizon. But could you tell our audience a little bit about what you do with that class and birthday cards, and how you use them to help draft birthday cards for the employees?
I do, and it just comes back to the idea. Well, let me go back a step. When the first time we were in office, we would give a birthday card to each one of the employees in City Hall, and it was a little postcard. And instead of just writing my name, I'd write them a little note, because it means so much to any of us when we get a birthday card. 350 employees, and we do it every month. During the time, in between times I was mayor, I was working with the Guntersville City Schools, and their superintendent said, hey, here at my office, which he had 22 people, he said, I get the elementary school guys to make a card for me. I'm like, well, that's a great idea. So when I came back into office, it just so happens that my next door neighbor, Miss Williams, has a third grade class, and I said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? They started doing that, and so each birthday that somebody has, usually there's 30 to 40 birthdays a month, we'll give them a birthday card that's hand-designed by a third grader with their design, their name on the back of it, and then I'll write a personal note to it, and they continue to do that. What I then do is have a pizza party for them, and we just had it about a month and a half ago as a thank you for that, but we turned it into a civics lesson, and they ask question after question after question, which is really cool. Usually the first one is, do you know the president? Which we don't. The second one is, do you have a limo? No, we don't. But it's really neat to be able to connect with them. So it's a benefit both for them and I, and I just love it, and it's so neat. In every office that you go in, and I say every, that's not fair, but most every office you go in, if they received a birthday card, it's still there. So it's a really neat project that we have with the schools.
That is awesome. And I tell you what I want to do. I'm going to share when we get done the video that I watched earlier of you and Miss Williams' class. I think it was when you probably had your last pizza party.
It was.
Everybody can kind of see that and see this how you went over a lot of government and civics. And I think that civic knowledge is lost a lot of times in our young people. And I'm glad that you're doing that to share that and engage with them. And I'll tell you that Robbie Parker, when I spoke with him, said that when he comes into a classroom, because he's usually got his suit on, everybody asks if he's the mayor, especially if he's at the elementary school.
No, he's higher than that.
So when we talk about growth, and when I say growth, folks, I'll tell you that I looked at some of the demographics on the city's website. In 1990, there was less than 15,000 people in the city of Madison. Now we're talking over 50,000 less than 28 years later. So we're talking over 3 times the population growth there. What kind of infrastructure issues have you got and going on with police, utilities, fire, and other things? What are some of the challenges that the city has faced when you were in office prior and now this time?
Well, and it hasn't changed. When we came in 2008, it was roads, and then Bob Jones was the largest high school in the state, and we had no funding for the second high school. So I think that one of the things that we're most proud of is, as a mayor and council, we recognize our roles. And as a mayor, your job is to define the strategic vision, the destination of what you're trying to accomplish in the relative areas. And then council, you put together your plan with your department heads. You give it to city council because they have the money. They approve it, and then our job is to go do it. So in 2008, we started working on roads and working with Mayor Battle and the county commission at the time. We landed the projects of Old Madison Pike, where that used to be a really narrow, scary little piece, 565 and County Line, Zert Road. So we found the funding for James Clemens High School. So infrastructure was critical then. Now, since that time, we've added another 10 to 15,000 people in the city. We've expanded farther west. The meeting I'll head to here from this at 4 o'clock is working with the Metropolitan Planning Organization on roads and trying to figure out the infrastructure that's going to support the overall area. That's just the road side of it. You then have to make sure you have the recreation facilities. As you go farther with territory, you have to make sure your fire department has the proper coverage areas, because one of the things that you don't pay attention to until you try to pay your homeowner's insurance is you're rated based on certain ratings. We have the highest rating that you can possibly get, which means your insurance rates are the lowest that they could possibly be. So there's a lot of different factors that go into infrastructure, but the critical piece is public safety needs to be job number one. We all want to feel safe. Secondly, make it as easy as we can to get to and from work, to and from church. Third, you want to make sure that in Madison, your infrastructure is greenways, ballparks, quality of life type pieces. So all of that fits together. It can sometimes feel overwhelming. The great thing about us is we partner with the city council with one plan and then work with a great team of department heads to help make it happen.
Yeah. Hey, for everybody that maybe just joined us, this is More Slowly and Thought, and welcome to Mojo Live. Today is Mayor Paul Finley of the city of Madison. We're talking about what makes Madison one of the great places to live in Alabama and really in America. And, Mayor, I can tell you as a parent, and I think you've probably been there years ago, and we were talking a little bit about this. It's amazing to see that when we go out to Palmer Park or go out to Dublin Park, I mean, it's full, and we got kids everywhere, and all ball fields are busting at the seams, which is great to see that many kids and parents' involvement in doing. But I know that is something that I've heard in the community, and I know you hear is, hey, we need more recreation, and we need more ball fields, and then I guess trying to find A, the funding, and B, the actual land to do it is tough.
It is, and I'll give you an example. When I have 3 sons, but when my oldest son was 13 and 14, he played soccer, and in the city of Madison, you really only had 2 lit soccer fields in the city, and so he practiced because he was one of the older kids at 13. He practiced at 8:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and there was 3 other teams on that field. So that's just what we all have to deal with. So as you continue down that process, one of the best things that we've done, we did get some land donated to us right next to Palmer Park. Council approved about a $2 million project. So we're adding 3 lit big soccer fields, a couple of other dog parks. We're taking the greenway that ends there at Palmer on down farther south, concession facility, parking. So, that's one area that we'll make a difference on, and that's phase 1 of about 4 phases at Palmer. We're also adding some lights at Dublin. So, and then continuing to try to take the Mill Creek Greenway, which ends right there at Browns Ferry, farther north to get it all the way. If we can tie it together with Eastview, where you get close to Bob Jones, you can start getting through the city without having to have a car. So all of those facets go together with trying to make it worth with a limited budget. And then I'll tie together with that. In Madison, we just, until a short time ago, didn't really focus on developing the revenue streams that give us more money to spend as a mayor and council on our citizens. So a perfect example is the Target Center, the Shops of Madison. We had to work our tails off to land that in Madison, but when we did, it's generating a little under $2 million a year in sales tax revenue. Once we pay off the $900,000 note, that gives you a little bit of money to spend on your citizens. So you have to work to collaboratively, strategically accomplish things that gives you the money then to spend on the citizens, and we're trying to use it wisely and stretch it.
Right. Well, I know I can tell you a lot of parents are going to be glad to hear about those expansions at Palmer, and it's great. I mean, we had practice the other night at 7:30 on a Friday night during spring break week, So I feel your pain. But that really kind of dovetails into what I wanted to kind of, let you speak on next, and that is some of the great projects that are on the horizon, like Town Madison. I know everybody's excited. I'm sure you get a question every hour about the new baseball stadium and when the team may be coming and what you can talk about that. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what's going on with Town Madison and with the new baseball stadium and any other major economic projects that are going on that you wanted to highlight?
I sure can, and I'll go south, the core of Madison in our historic area, and then north. If I start on the south side, there's about 500 to 600 acres of available land to fill up, and that's with retail and businesses of quality. We had the opportunity this spring. Somebody came to us and said, we've got a possibility of buying a minor league team, and we'd like to talk to you about the possibility of bringing it to Madison. Now, in addition to that, we recognize that in Madison right now, you can't have a sit-down dinner for about 100 people. You have to go someplace else. So tying the two of those together, we came up with a plan and recently passed $46 million venue that is a multi-use facility, but the core of that is going to be minor league baseball. So the team, hopefully, if everything's approved through minor league and major league, will bring the team out of Mobile, and they will have 70 games a year in that facility. The rest of the time, non-baseball events will take over. So the ability to have the band awards nights, the Bob Jones awards nights in a place within Madison city limits is going to be cool. It also is a soccer field. It's a football field. It has a playground out in the outside, a walking track. So it's going to be a 365 venue that brings a lot of different opportunity. Now, that's the centerpiece of Town Madison, and what you're now going to see is we added the infrastructure pieces to it, and that whole area is just going to start to balloon with businesses that bring sales tax revenue to the city. So that is such an exciting opportunity. And if anybody does any research on what minor league baseball can do as a jump start to any type of facility like that, it makes a huge difference, and we're pretty excited about it. In historic downtown Madison, the old Madison, we worked together with the Seeleys, who have done 2 projects here in downtown Huntsville very successfully. We went and talked to them, and they, in turn, are going to bring about a 150-unit complex, very similar to the Avenues, into the heart of Madison, because it takes people to bring businesses. And they're also bringing retail space there, which will double the size of the retail space in historic downtown Madison. And then one of the neatest things is we're bringing a road from Wall Triana, Sullivan Street, into the football stadium. So we're going to give another way for people to get in and out that will come directly through that complex. So not only do we improve walkability, drivability, but we bring a really neat 4-story, brand new spanking building to that. So historic downtown Madison, our vision is 5 to 7 years from now, it looks like historic downtown Franklin, Tennessee, where every weekend you can come and shop, get ice cream, go to eclectic stores, enjoy yourselves. And then to the north side of town, right across from the Target Center, is the Clift property. It's about 600 acres up there, and it was recently purchased by a developer who wants to bring it into the city of Madison. It's currently in Madison County, and it would be a mixed-use facility. So along 72, you'd have businesses. On the backside, you'd have some larger houses, and in the middle is a park. So south, north, and in the middle, we have things started that over the course of the next 3 years, we just see ballooning into areas that make our city that much more appealing and better. with businesses where people can shop in Madison and their sales tax dollars stay in Madison.
Well, that's great. And that's so important. You kind of going back to what you said a few minutes ago, which is we have such, population growth, such a good quality of life there, but you got to have the sales tax dollars to support that quality of life, to build the infrastructure that you need. I don't know if you had an opportunity, but I had an opportunity last year with Wyatt's Madison team out at Palmer. We were the Braves, and we went to a Braves game, and that was such a neat. Now, certainly on a smaller scale, but there's retail space, there's dining, and hotel right there, so you can walk in, have a meal, do some shopping, and then go into the game. And that's kind of what I envision on a smaller scale for Town Madison and the Mountain League Park there.
Well, what would excite you even more to know is the developer who's responsible for Town Madison is the same developer who did all the retail next to that baseball facility in Atlanta. He's out of Atlanta, so Jeff Fuqua and his team. So that is the concept of what we're looking at. And so, restaurants and shops, and yes, go enjoy yourselves for a while, then come on into the venue. So you're going to see that happen. I think you'll hear announcements happening now that we've secured the infrastructure, so we can build a full interchange right there at Zert Road off 565. So yep, it's coming, and it's with that same guy who had success in Atlanta, and that's what we envision.
Well, if it's like that, Mayor, I'm really excited, and I know that Wyatt and I'll be lined up to go watch some baseball and and I think a lot of people will, and I think a lot of people are excited about having baseball come back to North Alabama. Can you talk to us, for those that don't know, if you're watching from maybe outside of Alabama or North Alabama, or either Tennessee, South Tennessee, we had a huge announcement a couple months ago with the Toyota Mazda plant. Toyota and Mazda have announced a joint venture where they're going to build a production plant here in North Alabama, and I think it's estimated about $1.6 billion and 4,000 plus employees, and I think it's going to be just right outside of Madison. But I know you and a lot of the local leaders were involved in that project to bring Toyota and Mazda here. Can you talk a little bit about what impact that may have on the city in terms of, either roads and all the things that we've kind of been talking about in terms of maybe some new development and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, it kind of scares you to death in one sense, and it excites you beyond belief in another. And kudos to, again, Huntsville, to Limestone County for leading that charge. Years ago, right before I came into office in 2008, we lost the Volkswagen facility to Chattanooga. And one of the reasons is they'd done a much better job of making sure the infrastructure was there for that type of facility, rather than saying, hey, if you build it, if you come, we will build it. So Huntsville, working with Limestone County and others, turned that Sewell property into a TVA mega site, which basically means we've done almost everything we can on the front end to be ready when somebody comes. And then they just, again, working with our chamber, kept working to find the right person. Then Mayor Battle, Chairman Yarborough over there in Limestone County, led that charge and came to the rest of us at the end and said, if you guys will get involved, here's what we can bring. So in the end, it's $1.6 billion, as you said, about 4,000 jobs for that facility. But it has about a 2.5 multiplier on top of that, which means that there's another 10,000 support jobs that will come on top of that. So about 15,000 jobs. The facility itself literally is at the western end of Madison. So it is dead next to us. So part of what we have to talk about now is traffic flow will change a little bit, where everybody used to be going from the west to the east to try to get to their jobs. That now will change. And so Madison's right in the middle of all of that. And our critical piece is we have to work with Huntsville and Madison County, Limestone County, in road structure that will support people getting back and forth. It can't just be all about sales tax dollars. It has to be about moving traffic efficiently and effectively. So we were in a 9 o'clock meeting this morning talking about it. We'll talk about it at 4 o'clock. When you're Madison, you'll continue to talk about it as much as you can, because that's we have to work diligently to be successful on moving people. But it's such an exciting. It was the second largest economic development project available in the United States, only behind the Amazon facility, and we won it in this area, and it speaks volumes for what this area is doing right now.
Well, and I agree. We have such a great workforce here. We have such, as we talked already about, a great educational backgrounds here. We have great schools, as we've mentioned, the UAH, Alabama A&M, and Oakwood. We have a lot of our other two-year and technical schools here. We have a lot of base for those kinds of jobs and growth here. But what I think it really also speaks to, and I mentioned this earlier, and I'd like for you to touch on this as we get ready to wrap up here, because I certainly want to be cognizant of your time, is what a collaborative effort that you and Mayor Battle and his staff and your staff and Mr. Strong, Dale Strong, and Limestone County to come together to see one goal and work as a group, even though you're with separate cities or different counties. I think that's really speaks volumes to what you guys have been able to pull off. How do y'all do that? Why does it seem to work so well for everybody to do that? Can you speak to that? Because I think a lot of communities don't have that.
Well, I'll do it on the macro level and then go down to the micro level. Macro-wise, it kind of goes back to the understanding that if you're growing, you're going to be that successful. And so everybody channels their energies and lets one person lead, which right now from a job standpoint is the Huntsville Madison County Chamber. And then, Mayor Battle and Chairman Strong, we get that. So where we can help each other in bringing jobs here, we will. Then it comes down to sales tax dollars, and that's when you kind of everybody for themselves when you're a city. That's where Madison struggles because Huntsville is just so strong, has the funding to be able to a lot of times entice folks that we can't, has a larger staff. So we do everything we can and to partner in the areas that we can. And when we compete, we try to just do the best that we can in Madison, knowing that it's tough sometimes. But where I'm really proud of Madison is what we now are focused on, and that's keeping our schools strong. Because where we help the most in the overall economic development is when it comes to schools, when you have the third best school district in the state, and really the only one when it comes to kind of free and reduced lunch. I mean, the top one's Mountain Brook. They don't have any free and reduced lunch. Seconds, I think, Vestavia Hills, and if I'm not mistaken, and they have 10%. We've got almost 25% free and reduced lunch. We're a real school district, and yet because we have an appointed school board and there is no good school or bad school in Madison, they're all great schools, and as you said, only one of two districts where every school got an A. But we now have an overcrowding problem that's coming. And so collaboratively, the mayor and council worked with the school board and the superintendent. We put together a growth committee that in turn has brought us data back and said, within 4 years, you're going to need another middle school. Within 6 years, another elementary school. Within 10 years, another high school. And that's if growth even stays remotely the same. So we have to work on that now because we don't have any way to pay for those schools right now. And yet it's a problem that's not going away. Bad news does not go away. So we've worked together. We've got the data. We'll now bring that to the community. Matter of fact, I'll do something tomorrow with Robbie Parker as the superintendent. We're going to bring 2 community meetings where we can let the community know what's real and what some of the options are. And so I'm really proud of the fact that we work together and that we in turn understand what's critical for our community. They said, keep our schools strong, and we know to do that. So you'll continue to see and watch us focus on that, and we will come up with an answer. Now, the answer may be that the citizens at some point have to get involved, but they'll be able to vote on that, and we'll bring them something that's a plan, not just a hope.
Yeah, well, that's so important. We, that's kind of been a theme, I guess, throughout the interview here, and that is how important our education system is here. I can tell you that my wife had people in her classroom this week from, I think, Millbrook down around the Montgomery or Prattville area up to watch and see how they do things. So our school system is a shining example for other school systems around the state and in the Southeast. They come to Madison to see what's going on in our schools. And so, folks, if you're watching this and you're in Madison, I really encourage you to listen to what the mayor, the superintendent have to say, to be open-minded to what's needed to fund these schools so we can give them a chance to continue to grow and prosper, because that's so vital for our area and for the city of Madison.
And our community is so smart. And to give you an example, my oldest son, graduated years ago, had a 34 on the ACT. He's a smart kid, but because of his educational value, that got him a full ride to Auburn. What's that worth? And so because of that, I think parents can look and say, you know what, as long as you can show me where you're going to keep the educational value the same, and I can see the end goal, like you have a second grader, man, if I have to spend $200, $250, $300 more a year to then be in a position where my kid gets a scholarship, where schools are costing $25,000, $30,000 a year, in some instances a semester. It's well worth the investment as long as they can see that it's going to do, that they can see the end goal. And so we're very cognizant of that and going to work diligently to try to continue to partner and make that happen.
I think that's a great point to make. I had one quick question from Mitch Jackson out in California. He said he was curious to know, and I thought about asking this too, is that, as we're in 2018, we're sitting here doing it now, where I'm sitting here, we're interviewing and speaking live on Facebook. How are you, or how is the city using social media to engage the public, to build community involvement, to bring things up to the public, to maybe educate them on issues like what's going on with roads and the schools and stuff? How's the city doing that? And we'll kind of wrap up with this question.
Two ways, and you mentioned the first one. We hired a communication specialist, made sure she had the proper equipment, and so we almost on a biweekly basis, we do a video talking about something that's important. You mentioned the one about, kind of a fun one, but we've done them on the Town Madison project, on the Sealy project in historic downtown Madison, on the transportation study that we just got done. So we're using technology, video, which everybody appreciates. So that's one way. The second way is when her first project that she managed was redoing our website. So in being able to do that, we've added all the social media platforms to it. But a perfect example of what's on there to tie together with our community is something called Notify Me. So you can go to our website at madisonal.gov, and you can sign up for almost 25 notifications. And if a status changes, we will send you and push that out to your email or via a text message. And let me give you an example. You're sitting right now, and it could rain in Madison. You're trying to figure out, do I have to get back for a 5:30 baseball game at Palmer Park? If it rains in Madison and we're going to close that park, we will send you, we go from a green light to a red light on the website, and we will push that out. You know it. And so we're fully engaged, understanding that, the criticality of information. An empowered community is one who has as much information as I do. Because, while we're responsible for it, we get a lot of good information. So we're using it in the best possible ways we can. And I'm doing as much of this as I can because I want folks to know what's going on. I don't want to hold it together. And information is power. That power is pushing out to the people.
Yeah, and a lot of people now, this is how they get their information and do. And I think one other thing that I think people might want to check out, Mayor, that I know we use at our house a lot, and my wife does, especially, is Nixle. And to sign up for the Nixle alerts from the Madison Police Department and stuff, what's going on, to know if there's accidents, road closures, and things going on. So if you're not familiar with Nixle, check that out. It'll give you alerts to your phone if something's going on, or in your own city, whatever city you may be watching from. Hey, again, this is More Slowly and Thaw with the Mo Show Live, and I'm interviewing and speaking with Mayor Paul Finley of the city of Madison. And Madison is just a really thriving and great community to live and raise a family. Mayor, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to put some links at the end, at the conclusion here, in the comments to the video, where I'll have a link to the new website. We'll put the information about the Twitter and Facebook for the city. So if you want to follow those things and check out more about what's going on in the city, you can find it there. Mayor, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate your service very much.
Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir.